the Premier League started crazy this year. First of all, Enzo Maresca leaving by his own volition from Chelsea, a project which, in my opinion, had legs to stand on. There's a million questions, and for a moment, Chelsea was the banter club. Chelsea was the club that was thinking the most dumbest thing, the worst poor run club in the Premier League, and everybody forgot about Manchester United. But no, yesterday, Ruben Amorim, I was waking up, it was 10 a.m. and boom, he is sacked. I had no idea what had just happened. I wasn't even able to watch the Leeds versus Manchester United game because it was so early. So I was like, there is no way. I mean, they've stuck with this guy through the worst of results. Guernsey last season finishing in 17th place, losing to Spurs in the Europa League final. Immediately I checked the scores. Leeds versus Manchester United. Leeds must have battered these guys badly for Ruben Amorim to have gotten the hatch. Soon enough, it starts coming out that it was because of the press conference that he gave after the Leeds game. Absolutely bashing the board. Honestly saying stuff that has been said for a decade now about how poorly run this club is, how much of an issue it is, and how difficult it will be to make this Manchester United actually rebuild and be back in its feet and be that Manchester United that we grew up watching. Which it really speaks testaments to this board, this board of directors, these sporting managers, whoever you want to call it, Ratcliffe, the Glazers. They are an absolute mess. First of all, if we recall last season or 2 seasons ago now, Erik ten Hag won an FA Cup and it seemed like he was going to keep his job, even though with the way that they had been playing now, it had been, 2 years of Erik ten Hag, and there seemed to be absolutely no progress in the team. They had won some cups, but other than that, they seem to have stagnated. Come around, they give him the job for one more season, see where things go, and sure enough, Manchester United get derailed once again. He gets sacked, and immediately they are looking for a new manager. What's the new hot thing in town? Ruben Amorim. Ruben Amorim is cooking with Sporting Lisbon. He absolutely batters Manchester City, which starts that horrendous run that they had last year, Manchester City. And he's an exciting new manager. Ruben Amorim was actually seen by the City board because it was rumored that it was Pep Guardiola's last season with the club last season. But it wasn't, of course. Anyways, everybody falls for the hype for Ruben Amorim. And Manchester United strike. They would need a manager. They just sacked Ten Hag. There is basically half a season left. They sack him in around November. So although Ruben Amorim did not want to leave Sporting Lisbon because he was doing so well in there, Manchester United keep pushing, basically tell him if you don't do it now, you're never going to get this opportunity. And boom, Ruben Amorim is the new manager of Manchester United. Well, not manager, coach, as I've seen in many reports that apparently when he was hired as a coach, not a manager, which means he has not much power in the signings. Now, the way Ruben Amorim was cooking was a 3-4-3. This is exactly why Manchester United brought him in. And he was adamant in his first press conference. He said he was going to try and play the way that he wanted to play because that's what he was brought in for. He's a 3-4-3 manager. Now, so far it seems, Manchester United were ambitious. They wanted a manager who was young, up and coming, somebody who they trusted to rebuild with, and that seemed to be Ruben Amorim. Now, HITT Sports posted a video about this whole Manchester United case, I think literally today, and I was watching it, and I learned that
Dan Ashford,
he was the Newcastle sporting director before he came to Manchester United, which once again, they poached him, and they got him into Manchester United so he can do his work and be a good sporting director, do the decisions. Now, apparently, he wanted to take the time, look at the resumes, look at the numbers, look at the playing styles, and look at the identity of the team to come to a better conclusion on who the manager should be. But a couple of higher ups, including Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they were all taken aback by Ruben Amorim, this young manager who's up and coming, revolutionary ideas, a 3-back, a whole new revamp of this Manchester United, when the team was not made for a 3-back. The team had been a 4-back the entire time. Now, as I said, everybody jumped ship. They went with Ruben Amorim, and he was the only one that was not backing Ruben Amorim. And soon enough, after the hassle that they went to get him out of Newcastle, they fire him only 6 months later for basically doing his job and recommending that, Ruben Amorim is a 3-back manager. He's sure gonna be great, but I don't think we have the money to back him and completely revamp Manchester United. So I think that shows the absolute lunacy and the absolute lack of control that these owners, or whatever they are at this point, have. They don't even let the sporting director who they brought in to build a winning team do his job and then fire him only 6 months later. But anyways, you've got Ruben Amorim, and things start to shape up pretty bad because, of course, he's a 3-back manager, so things are really rocky, trying to move the whole team around to fit his style. Then January comes in. There is absolutely no movement in the transfer window. Luke Shaw has not been fit for the past 3 years up until now. So they basically have nobody on the left wing back position. So they bring in Patrick Dogu, a really young, promising player. And on the right wing back, they bring nobody. Now, something that was immediately present in that Manchester United side under Ruben Amorim is the lack of a midfield, right? You had Casemiro, who is really old, really slow, and you can't expect them to do that much work, right? And on the other hand, Ruben Amorim was forcing Bruno Fernandes to become a midfielder with Casemiro, when his whole career he's been one of the best center attacking mids in the Premier League. So immediately, Bruno Fernandes not being able to mark, not being able to get that role of being a box-to-box, and Casemiro not being able to cover up for Bruno Fernandes' lack of defensive discipline, it leads to a gaping hole in the midfield. They were getting played through and out, and a lot of people were claiming, you could play Ugarte, you could play Kobbie Mainoo, but Ugarte has proven that he is not at the Premier League level, and Kobbie Mainoo is too young. You can't leave the work from Casemiro, from only two midfielders, to a 19-year-old to do on his own. Now, where I will say Ruben Amorim did not help himself was sidelining Kobbie Mainoo, because yes, he would be a great midfielder to have playing, and he wouldn't even give him scrap minutes, which is absolutely insane, and he started losing the fan base from then on. That does not distract from the point that Ruben Amorim needed two midfielders that could run. He didn't have none of that. So he wasn't backed in the January transfer window, and that does not, let's be honest, yes, he was very, very stubborn in the way that he wanted to play. He stated multiple times, I'll die playing my style, my 3-back, which is one of the main reasons as to why Manchester United ended so low in the Premier League. As mentioned, he didn't have the midfielders to play two midfielders. He kind of needed to pack it with as many midfielders that he could. That included Mainoo, maybe even Ugarte, because at the end of the day, they would be able to compensate. They kept getting outplayed in the midfield completely. You simply gotta adapt. And Ruben Amorim was not budging, and he was not willing to do that. So as I said, he racked up a horrendous streak in the Premier League, finishing in 15th place last season, but made it into Europa League final, losing to, once again, Spurs. Now, coming into the season, there was already plenty of people divided on whether or not he was the man for the job, but he had taken out some of the dead wood that was in the club, this being players like Rashford or Garnacho, who honestly, although Rashford wasn't much of an issue, on the pitch I think he needed a change already, and Garnacho, his disciplinary issues, you can't have a player like that, especially in a club in such bad form like Manchester United. So he had kind of won the fans over in that respect. Not only that, his harsh reality check, the harsh way that he was talking about the team, really won the respect of many of the fans. So the fans and the board, who said that they would stick with them, let him build for 3 years. Ruben Amorim had somehow, some way, even with the horrendous season last year, bought himself another season, or so we thought. this would mean it would be the first summer transfer window that Ruben Amorim would have under the Red Devils. Now, even though Sir Jim Ratcliffe fired lunch ladies, cut charity spending for the greater good of the club, of course, he still made it seem like Manchester United were in the mud, absolutely horrendously in debt, which they technically are. But he was able to get some money and spend big this summer. Manchester United spent on Mbeumo and on Cunha. They spent over 100 million on both of them, each one costing around 70 to 60 million. And they brought in a new striker because, my gosh, Højlund was not doing it for Manchester United. They brought in Benjamin Sesko, so they spent big on the attack. But something massive that everybody, similar to the whole Madrid situation, everybody could see this. The midfield was not solved. It was the exact same midfield that last season worked for absolutely nothing. They didn't get a single box-to-box. They didn't get a single prospect, a single youngster, a DM, somebody to replace Casemiro. Absolutely nobody in the midfield. So from the get-go, Ruben Amorim was doomed to fail under the system that he was trying to implement. And if the Manchester United board were actually willing to bet on this guy, to back this guy, like they said they would for 3 years, that this was the man. Keep in mind, this was the man that was going to change Manchester United. That's the story that they told. And they go ahead and not back him with a single midfielder. That is absolutely ridiculous. And although you did get Mbeumo and you got Cunha, two great cams, two great wingers at some points, at the end of the day, the best center attacking midfielder, maybe even in the league, you're playing him as a box-to-box and he is getting rinsed game in, game out. So now Manchester United get into the season and boom, right away you see the gaping difficulties of not having proper midfielders that are able to run the midfield like it is. We're only being them two. The combination of not having a strong enough squad to not even play week in, week out, not even Champions League or games in between, pure Premier League, it wasn't even enough to get them over the line. How are you gonna say you're gonna be backing a manager for 3 years and then not back him the proper way? That is outlandish stuff from the Manchester United board. Now, although the board had plenty of faults here, Ruben Amorim is not completely excused. I mean, his complete stubbornness to die on this 3-back, 2 midfield formation was outlandish. It was ridiculous. I mean, it seemed like at times he was trying to lose the games on purpose. And I get it. They brought him in for a thing. He's a man of character or whatever. But the reality is, he didn't have the midfielders to play a 2-man midfield. He needed 3 people in there. And a lot of people, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter the formation. The way the players move around in the field is probably completely different to the way the formation is. So of course it wasn't a strict 3-back. So what he could have done is add a center back to play more as a midfielder or something like that, trying to help out that midfield, because it wasn't sticking. It simply was not sticking. And he kept playing Bruno and Casemiro. One got injured. You got in Ugarte, Kobe Manu. As I said, he just died or something. I don't know what he did to Ruben Amorim's family or whatever. He was just not of his liking. And game in, game out, that midfield kept getting outrun. And fast forward now to the latter end of December. Now that game against Newcastle United in Boxing Day was a disaster. I think Ruben Amorim was trying to throw the game. The subs that he made were absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I genuinely thought he was trying to throw away the game. It was embarrassing what he was trying to do. Getting in a bunch of young kids to start defending for their lives in that game when you need this win against Newcastle United, taking out Casemiro like in the 70th minute when he had been your best midfielder and defensively you needed him there, And after the first half domination that he had against Newcastle, throwing it back and turning over, bending over for Newcastle United in that second half, I swear this guy was trying to lose his job in Boxing Day. And I really thought that soon would come his end, because that level of, the best way I can put it is cuckery. You simply can't have it in Manchester United. Manchester United have low standards now. They're not aiming for top 4 constantly. Europa League type areas, that's what they're aiming at. But this guy was not even trying to be in that conversation. So his in-game management did not seem to improve. He was already losing the fans. Fans were questioning whether this guy really was the real deal. Well, because I mean, the subs that he was making, the talks that he was saying, this guy was out of the rails. So he was on his way out already. And then the Leeds game comes up, and once again, I wasn't able to see the match, but it's a draw against Leeds. Leeds have been pretty darn good in the last couple of weeks. They just lost against Newcastle precisely, but it's actually crazy how what Ruben Amorim said was the reason that he got fired. I think he should have gotten fired maybe a bit sooner, or maybe they should have doubled down. I mean, this guy, they promised him 3 years just a couple months ago, or a month ago even. Sir Jim Ratcliffe apparently went into a podcast and he said Ruben Amorim is the future. Ruben Amorim is who we're gonna stick for 3 years. And for this to happen, Manchester United is a mess, man. I really thought Chelsea were gonna take the cake this year, but my gosh, these guys do not stop surprising people. And now, who will be the new Manchester United manager? There's a lot of talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Of course, Enzo Maresca left. I highly doubt that he ends up getting the job for Manchester United. I think United will offer him a job. I doubt Maresca wants to take that. I think he is probably waiting for the City job. So I think Ole is like the best option. Under them, they were playing a lot of counter-attacking football. But it's the state of Manchester United now, right? He was winning games with or without counter-attacking football. I think he's the guy that you got to go with and stick with him this time, because at least what he's willing to do is adapt. And he's quite a young manager, well, at least in the managing type of world. So he will hopefully grow with the team as the team hopefully gets better. But one thing that they do need to do this summer is get a darn midfielder. With 2, with 3, with 4, none of the midfielders there are at the quality of Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes is at the quality of an attacking midfielder, but he's not at the quality of a midfielder. Casemiro, he's old as hell. Kobe Maino's a bit too green, a bit too young, and he needs somebody who is probably better and more experienced than him next to him. That's not Casemiro, who is 39 years old. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for this video. It's a mess over there in Manchester United. I haven't made much videos about them because it's the same old story. But, you know, sometimes crazy things like this happened. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully Manchester United get back into their feet.